So many people will say, I'm not creative. Well, I can't draw, I can't paint, but I'm creative at work. I can create benefits programs, or I can find new ways to stretch a budget. So I think creativity as a word is just too small. So researchers have differentiated it in different styles. So broadly, there's big C creativity or large C creativity. That's things like the Eiffel Tower or The Simpsons or Cubism, things that are celebrated by experts in a domain. But there's also small C creativity. That's everyday creativity. That's the creativity I'm talking about today. Things that you already do that you might not call creative. Maybe it's building a pivot table or an Excel table. Maybe it's figuring out how to program your coffee maker so you can shave 3 minutes off of your time in the morning to get to work. It could be sneaking vegetables into smoothies for your kids. Or it could even be something like April Fool's joke for your kids. One night I sat up, it wasn't my idea. I found it online, and I got some brown construction paper, and I cut out E's. And I put them in a box, and I gave them to my son. He's going on a field trip. Grade 2 field trip. I said, I made you some brownies. And on the lid, I wrote, no butter, no eggs, no chocolate, no flour. And he got to the front of the bus, and he opened up the package and said, my mom made brownies. And out comes some cut-out brown E's. He still says he's traumatized by that experience, so I guess I'll just pay for his therapy. Hopefully he has some benefits to cover it at some point. Because we think creativity is something that's beyond our reach because it has to be artistic, but we're using it every single day. Is there something you're using in your life that you wouldn't call creative until this moment? Even choosing your outfit or choosing your earrings or what kind of shoes you're going to wear is a creative act. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. This feels like a very self-serving slide, but I think it's important. What does a veterinarian do talking about creativity? Is that weird? It seems weird. So let me explain. When I was a little girl, I loved animals. I couldn't think of anything I would rather do than take care of them for the rest of my life. I was on the fast track to being a veterinarian. So much so that by the time I was 14 years old, I was panicking because I didn't have any experience from my vet school application. So that was, I'm a little type A like many of you in this room. And then I got to high school and a funny thing happened. I developed a love for performance. Acting, that's me in a play where I was like a dumb princess or something. And I felt really conflicted. I felt like I was on the top of the mountain. And on one side was art, because I loved acting. On the other side was science, that I still loved. I loved problem solving, I loved animals, and I felt like I had to choose. And I didn't think I had the talent to be an actor. I had no idea how to become a cinematographer, and I still loved animals. So obviously I pursued veterinary medicine and got my degree, and I worked in small animal practice to start with, then I worked in ER, and then I also took some time off to travel. I worked in medical research. I worked for a pet food company as a technical services manager. I worked in teaching and research. Then I had 2 companies, and if it's not completely obvious, yes, I do have ADHD. But throughout that journey, I still felt like I had to separate this art and science part of me. So one of the businesses I had was a jewelry business. And I didn't want to tell any of my vet school friends about it, or vet colleagues about it, because I thought they would think it was weird. So I didn't tell anybody. And then one day that changed. I don't know why. I probably needed the sales. Anybody who's ever had a side hustle, like, it's easy to buy the stuff. It's not so easy to sell the stuff. And a funny thing happened. So I would tell them I had this jewelry business, and some of them thought it was weird. And what I do as a vet is what's called a relief vet. So I'm self-employed, and I go into different clinics. So I'd be in a clinic, and I'd tell them about my jewelry business, and I wouldn't come back for a few weeks or a month. And what I noticed time and time again is that people would come up to me and said, you told me about your jewelry business, which I thought was kind of weird, but that reminded me of that thing I used to do. And I loved doing that thing. I don't know why I stopped. Whether it was quilting or woodworking or singing in a choir. And this has happened over and over again. And I noticed that when I went back to these clinics, it just seemed just a little bit smoother. The clients were a little bit happier, the team seemed a little bit more cohesive, and everything seemed to just work a little bit better. And I wondered, is this universal, that when people are embracing their creativity, it starts to make them feel better? And so I dove into some of the research. How are you feeling? Good? Some of you might be feeling a little uncertain. What's she going to make us do? Did you know that people would rather know and get an electric shock than wonder if they were going to get it at all? That's called foreshadowing. No, I'm just joking. So what you're going to do in a second is turn to a partner and you're going to have a staring contest. Yeah. We're down to the competitive. Oh, there's two there. Look at the focus, the concentration. This is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. I guess I underestimated your will for. Oh, all right. Oh. Yay! Let's give everybody a round of applause. D-A-N-C-E. Woo! You know what? We need something else. Ready? D-A-N-C-E. D-A-N-C-E. Then you can dance, because that's creative too. Woo! Okay. D-A-N-C-E. D-A-N-C-E. Woo! Let's give our volunteers and everybody a round of applause.